All right. It seems to work. Let's see. Great. Great. Okay, let's see. Yeah, hi. It's great to be here. I think there's one person watching. So I'm streaming today. This is an experiment. I'm doing a streaming marathon for 5 days. So today and well, the whole week I will stream while building an application in processing, which should be in the 3D space. The idea is that I really start from scratch, and let me just check if my recording is on. Yep, it is. That's cool. I'm starting from scratch. I'm trying to build something from the ground up, but the basic idea is to build a three-dimensional space with processing, because I think it's very important to see or to try to display the boundaries and the possibilities of processing. So of course I know some of them, I think, working with processing and building 3D applications is not the most convenient way. I think there are some frameworks that are better suitable for 3D experiences, like, for example, 3JS or even P5JS, because WebGL renders on the graphics card. But hey, processing is an amazing software. I love to use it. And it's really the foundation of creative coding. It really, it's a part of the history of media art. And it has such a great community. I'm talking a lot about why I use processing, but I think it's really very important to point this out, that this is a really great software. Anyway, what I did last week, I wrote an email to my Patreon community. And by the way, if you want to learn creative coding, just make sure you join my Patreon. I have lots of courses on my website where I share my knowledge. And this is a very, very, a project that I really love working on. This is my website. Let me just go to the screencast here. This is my website, and you can see this. These are my courses, right? So this is the place where I build a comprehensive curriculum on creative coding. And if you want to learn creative coding yourself, check it out. It's connected with my Patreon community. By becoming a student or a supporter on my Patreon, you get access to several courses. Check it out. I think it's really cool. I've got about 500 people at the moment supporting me and learning with me together. It's an amazing journey. And if you like learn to code, which I highly recommend because it's a superpower, then you should check it out. Let me just see. I think my glasses are super dirty, to be honest. Cool. How to start building something like that. Okay. Well, first of all, I think it makes sense to set a few constraints. And with constraints, I mean set some boundaries for this project. And I will create a new markdown file here to write down these constraints and ideas that I have. So I call this digital, what was the name again? What was the name again of this project? So stupid. Digital reality, that's how I call it. Reality. Okay, so first of all, I use processing. This is one of the first parameters or constraints I work with. So I will work with the mouse and the keyboard as user interface elements, interaction devices. I will also use a specific color theme. I think black and white is great. I always use black and white when I don't have a reason to use a specific color, so I will use black and white. And I will also get inspired by some of the moods I've just collected. I will show you what I mean in a minute. Use moods for inspiration. Build an interesting 3D experience. Cool. All right. So how do we interact with this 3D scene? Well, there are several possibilities. There are different ways how we can interact with 3D. Some are very comprehensive and very advanced. Maybe, augmented reality. So we could kind of use the smartphone to interact with a scene. We could use a WASD control with a mouse that we know from first-person games or even from third-person games. We could also use orbit controls, which means that we can use the scroll wheel or touch bar to zoom into the scene. And there are many different possibilities. We also could fix the way of interaction or make an animation out of it without making this whole scene interactive. And kind of animate the camera. But I think we have to see how well the performance works, because processing comes with the problem that 3D renders on the CPU and not on the GPU. That means we have some constraints in terms of performance. I'm very curious to see when I will reach these problems. But okay, basically what you see here are just a few rules that I will follow in this project, and you already can see that I have no idea what I will come up with, right? This is really, and this is something I really want to point out here. It's not really just about coding something and learning to code, but what you will see in this project, hopefully, or you will learn, hopefully, is that that the sketching process is highly important. It's super important to understand that creative coding is, first of all, about exploring, and it's about trying out things, experimenting, creating results, documenting these results, building a folder structure that enables you to go through the simple or the single steps that you just did in this project. This is the most important thing in the beginning, because you have to set up the whole project. And so I just created a folder. I've got some stuff in here. So I already experimented a little bit with the camera, and to be honest, I'm not skilled enough to create a first-person camera. Maybe there's someone out there who is able to help me with that later on. I don't know. Just leave a comment. Hello, Sergio is also here. Thomas, nice. So cool. Robbie, nice. It's great to have some people here from my community. Greetings. Again, so I'm not really skilled in building a first-person camera, because this comes with some problems. Let me show you what I came up with last week when I tried to build something that makes the camera controllable. So first of all, processing has this 3D mode. And in that 3D mode, we have control over the camera. That means we can change the position and the point where the camera looks. So basically, a camera consists of these two vectors. A vector is a point in the 3D space. So the first point is the camera itself, and the second point is where the camera looks at, right? So mostly when we set up a 3D scene, we have a camera in front that just looks into the middle of the sketch. But by controlling the camera like this, you can see that I can change. There's my friend Cyril. No, I won't take this call now. We can control how we look at the scene, right? Let me just write him a message. Maybe he wants to join the stream. Let's check. No, okay. Yeah, so I can control how I look into my scene. And here in this sketch, I already implemented this control or this navigation with WASD, which is the the basic way to interact with a scene in a normal shooter game or a first-person game. But I still have some difficult problems because I didn't manage to get it work that I can walk into the direction where the mouse points to. So I think for the beginning of this tutorial or of the series, I will really start with a very simple interaction and will hope to find someone who is able to help me to make this a real first-person camera. Okay, all right. Again, but let's start from scratch. I don't want to confuse you with some finished code. I will now create a scene in processing, a very basic one to just try to get a 3D space up and running here. Alrighty, processing is starting. That's cool. Let me just. All right, cool. Let's get started here. So I will create the setup and draw function. Void setup. And void draw. Nice. All right. So I will set the size to 1920, 1080. So on my MacBook Pro, I use Linux, as you maybe can see. I don't use Mac. I really love to experiment with open source software, and I think this is a very, very interesting option for people who can't afford a real and expensive MacBook Pro, for example. Ubuntu is the operating system I use. It's open source. It's really, really powerful. It has everything you need, and you can kind of recycle any kind of old computer to get it up and running again with Ubuntu. So Ubuntu really runs on every kind of old computer. It's amazing. I love it. And yeah, I will create a black background here. I'm jumping around, I know. And now I want to create a floor for the scene. I want to have a floor which consists of very small boxes so that I can see that I'm moving in the space when I later on integrate the interaction. So for that purpose, I will create a grid of rectangles. I will start with 2D to keep it as simple as possible. And I will create a variable called tiles x to define how, because I'm now working in a coordinate system on x and the y axis, and I will define how many points or how many points I want to have on this grid here. So I will say tiles x equals to 30. Let's start with 30. And we'll create another variable called tiles y, and it also should have 30. I also could just replace the 30 with tiles x, so I will always make sure that tiles x is equal to tiles y. Now I create a variable that's called tile w, and tile w is basically the width of each tile in that grid I'm creating here. So width divided by tiles x, float tile h equals to height divided by tiles y. Alrighty, let's see. Now I created a nested for loop. For int x equals to 0, x is smaller than tiles x plus plus. And I will take that line of code and nest it into the other one. and I will replace X with Y. Whoops, not uppercase, but lowercase. Here we go, tiles Y, Y++. Amazing. So now I have a nested for loop, which is the foundation to create a grid. And now I will create this grid by saying push, which creates a new matrix, pop, which closes this matrix. I will use the translate function to translate the tile on an axis, like tile W times X and tile H times Y. That's how I distribute the elements on the sketch window. And now I will create, let's say, an ellipse, position 0, 0, and it should have a size of, let's say, 5. And I will make sure that the fill color of these elements will be white. Okay, let's see if that worked. I mean, this is something I do every day, so I've got a lot of practice in this. Yeah, what I see now is I had a little, let's say, I did a little mistake in thinking about the amount of tiles on both axes. Because when I equalize the amount of tiles on X and Y, this makes sense for square formats, but not for 16:9 HD format. So that means I will, let's do something like this, 16 times 2 and 9 times 2. And this should result in a grid with equally sized elements. Yes, that's cool, right? You can see that the width and the height of each element is equal. Nice. Okay, this should be the floor for my scene. Now, things get a little bit hacky, but hey, that's fine. I will wrap a matrix around the grid, and I will write a translate function in here, and I will take the whole grid and drag it to the top left, the center of this grid, drag it to the top left of the sketch window. So minus width divided by 2 and minus height divided by 2, because later on I want to rotate this grid, and if I would rotate it in the without translating it before, I would rotate it with the center at the top left of the grid, but that's not what I want. I want to rotate it in the middle. That's why I just take it here, drag it to the top left of the sketch window, and as you can see now, this is the center of this grid, but I have to reverse that again by saying here, that's one way to do it, width divided by 2 plus tile W times X and height divided by 2 plus tile H times Y. And that just, brings the whole grid again back to the center, but now the middle of this coordinate system is the center. And that's, and now I can just rotate it in any way I want around its own axis from the center and not from the top left, right? That's what I'm doing here. It looks a little bit confusing, but you will see that this is a very powerful thing. What I also want to do here is I want to translate, as you can see, the circles are now here at the top left, and I want to also translate the whole coordinate system by the half of a tile on each axis so that it's really centered. I can do so by saying tile W plus tile W divided by 2 and tile H divided by 2 plus. Right? Now you can see that it's really centered. Cool. Now, I mean, you can see what probably you ask yourself, what is he doing there? So let me just rotate it on the x-axis to show you that what I'm doing here. So radians and then 45. And I also have to set the renderer of my sketch to P3D to make it 3D. Let's see. Nothing happens. Why? Okay. I don't know what's going on here. I don't see anything. Let me change ellipse with box to show little boxes instead of ellipses. And let me deactivate the stroke. No stroke. Maybe that makes the whole thing visible, hopefully. No. Okay, I've got a problem in my code. And that's normal, right? That's totally normal, totally fine. I don't know exactly what's wrong here. Okay, I'm translating it here. Let me just comment this out again. Okay. Now I have the boxes at the right spot, and if I wrote what's wrong with this rotation? So if I set it to a fatal error detected by the Java runtime environment, JDK blah blah blah. Okay. Is this a critical error? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Stick the mouse instead. Rotate X, radians, mouse X. Oh, all right. So there is a problem. Make sure you bow. Okay, this is not too important, right? So as long as the sketch works, you can ignore these error messages. And the sketch works, that's what I see here. It just works as it should, but the only problem is that the rotation doesn't work as expected. So I don't want to rotate it. Okay, I've got a problem in my coordinate system. So what happens when I just comment this out here? Yeah. So I want to turn it around, rotate it on the y-axis and the x-axis in the center. Do this more often, so we call join your computers ready. All right, I will. Thanks. I was just checking the chat here on my, I've got the two windows here. Moin. Moin. Here's my flatmate Lutz just coming into the room, making some sports. We have kind of a sports studio here in my in my room. Yeah, I don't exactly understand what's going on here. So for any reason, it is not really centered as it should. Maybe I have to push pop. Could this do the trick? Whoops, I have to save that sketch also to make sure I won't lose anything. Here we go. Okay, this is the folder, 3D Gallery live stream. And here I create a code folder, and in there I will create a folder. Oops, MD. That was this the wrong folder? Okay, code, and then I will save this as, because I can't take any numbers in the sketch name, in the first characters of the sketch name, I will call this digital reality step 1. Step 1, 001. Okay. All right. Yeah, nice. That's exactly what I was looking for, right? I just reversed how I add and subtract the values. Before I had minus width divided by 2 and plus divided by 2 here. Sorry, minus width divided by 2 and minus height divided by 2 here, and here I was using plus, and this didn't work out as expected, as you can see. And what I did then is just reverse these values. And to be honest, I'm not a mathematician. This is not something I'm very familiar with, and it always confuses me very, very much, to be honest, when something like that doesn't work. But I learned over the course of the last years to really get very comfortable with that, because I know that, yeah, this is just how coding works. Debugging is a very, very important part of it. Okay, cool. Now, I've got that grid now up and running, and I would like to, at the moment it is, let's say, expanding over the width of the sketch window, but I would like to have a much larger terrain. So I will create a new variable that I call magnitude, float magnitude, to define how wide it should spread. Let's say 2000 for now, or let's start with 200, then we can see if it works. Okay, I will now replace width and height with magnitude here. Yep, does it make sense? Yeah, I think so. I translate it to the center. I think I have to replace this as well. And because I'm now working with a square, because magnitude has only one value, I will also use a equalize tiles X and tiles Y. So magnitude is 200, and I will just put it in here and hope that everything works. Let's see. Nope. Okay, that didn't work. Yeah, of course I have to, I have to put width divided by 2 and height divided by 2 in here. That should do the trick. Yes, very nice. Okay, cool. Now, magnitude is, at the moment, it is a constant. And tiles X and tiles Y is also a constant. I think it could make sense to just to make this code a little bit cleaner by creating changing the the letters to uppercase. So constants are data types that don't change over the runtime of the sketch, and I will then take that one here and just replace it. Yep, and because of that, I can take it and put it out here. So now I have it. I don't know if you heard of variable scope, but now this variable is accessible in every function in my sketch. It is basically a global variable, and I can access it both in magnitude, in setup and draw. And now I will set the magnitude to 2000 and see what happens now. So hopefully I will have an infinite terrain. Nope, not yet. Okay, let's set this to, let's say, 8000. Yeah, that's cool, right? So this looks like an infinite plane, which I can, which I later on can use as a floor. Now there's a code snippet on my website. It explains how to adjust the in the course, the third dimension. It explains how to adjust the perspective. It's very, very important. Let me see if that's true. I think, whoa, did I forget to put it in here? Okay, I think I didn't put it in here because I thought it could be a little bit too advanced for beginners. But let me just go to my backend here on my other screen to find it out, because I have to, I just have to. The problem is a 3D space in processing always has a huge rectangle in the quite far away from the center of the sketch, which crops everything and makes it invisible. That is, how to say that? Behind this rectangle. So it's like the background function is doing nothing else than creating a huge rectangle in processing. And that's a problem because some items just disappear when they are far away. And I want to make sure that they are still visible. And this is something I found out a few months ago, that this makes a lot of sense in basically every single how to say that? In basically everything a processing sketch with 3D. All right, so this is the piece of code. I'm just copy pasting it in here. And by the way, I will share the code later on my Patreon. So if you're interested in learning to code with processing, or basically with creative coding, learn the process, just come around, join my Patreon. We are about 500 people, that are in my community, and we are having, nice events, and we have this Discord server exchanging, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that. Okay, perspective pi divided by 3.0 float with height. I don't know exactly what that means, to be honest. I don't know. I just know that this is just eradicating the far clipping plane. And now this is much... I didn't do anything, but that's fine. I just want to have this whole field very, very wide and very far away. Let me just adjust the magnitude again to, let's say, 12,000, and I will also change the amount of tiles on both axes to 100. And yeah, this really looks like a 3D space now. And yeah, think of that. I mean, we've got 100 times 100 elements. These are already 100,000 boxes in my, 10,000 boxes in my sketch. That's quite a lot, right? Cool. Okay, this is the floor for the 3D scene. So now I will take my translate function here to put it a little bit downwards, comma, and I will say on the y-axis plus 200. Yes, nice. Now it is much more at the bottom of the sketch window. That's great. And I also will fix the rotation here to, let's say, 20. Let's see. Okay, that was not, or let's say 80. I'm just trying out things here. This is really very improvised. Okay, this looks very cool. Nice. Okay, we are all set. We have the floor at the bottom of the sketch window, and that's great. Now I could start to integrate a very simple interaction. For that purpose, I will create a new tab, and I will call this interaction. Yeah. And here we'll create a function called key move. I will call this function move. Yes. And I will, okay. I will say if key code equals to something, then do this. Okay. Before I implement this, I will create a new variable that is called position z or camera z. Float camera z. And it starts with 0. "22 people watching the stream, that's cool. It shouldn't be negative in the first translate, right? I think, yeah, that's possible. To be honest, I don't know what's the best practice here. You're talking about this function here, right? Yeah, to be honest, I don't exactly know how to code this very clean. So if you have any ideas, let me know. But it works. And this is what I wanted to achieve. Okay. You could maybe slow down the speed so it doesn't go fast. Yeah, I fear that what I'm doing is quite advanced. So my plan was not really to explain every single detail, because that would really break or really slow me so much down here while developing this whole application. I have to find the right balance to explain and to make progress at the same time, I think. Maybe put rotate before push matrix help. Oh. Thomas, I guess you mean you mean this function here? Is that what you mean? Okay, we can refactor the code later on. I think it makes sense to first of all make progress here. But it's great. Let's talk about this later on. Okay, so here I will put the variable camera Z. Okay, so now I have a variable that controls the position of the camera, and I can maybe create a quickly test like camera Z equals to mouse X and see if it does something. Yeah, nice. The problem is that it's kind of changing the height level for any reason. But it's already very interesting, I think. Very cool. I love that. It's amazing. Great. Okay. But this is a good start. So I've got this variable called camera Z. I also could use the frame count, for example, to make it an animation. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Okay, that's cool. Yes, I've got this variable now, and I want to control it now with the buttons W and S. So once W or W and S is pushed on the keyboard, is pressed, I want to move forward or I want to move back. So if key pressed parentheses, no, if key pressed, which is a predefined variable in processing, then run the function move. Okay, and in here I can say something like this. If key code equals to something, then camera Z plus equal speed. I will define a variable here which I call speed, float speed equals to 10. Cool, okay. Else, if key code equals to something else, then camera Z minus plus. So subtract speed from camera Z. And this runs then every single frame. And I will see what the appropriate key code is. So there's a website called keycode.info. And I can use it to find out what the key code of a special character is. And I will take W now. And I know that now that this is key code 87. So key code 87. And here S is key code 83. And we'll take that variable, put it into the translation here, and then it should, whoops, okay, I'm overriding it here, which is not what I want. It's not working. It's not working, okay. Okay, if key pressed, then move. Function move is defined here. Okay. Oh, Matteo, you are commenting and you know why the height levels change. Okay, let's take a look at this in a moment. I will first of all try to implement this interaction, and then we can take a look at the height level, okay? That's cool. All right, key code equals to 87 and key code equals to 83. That's fine. It should work, I think. If key pressed, then run function move. Let's see if that conditional statements works. Yep, okay, it works. So key press works, but the key code seems to be not working. Okay, let's say I will pass the key code to the function key code, and I will create a variable in here, key code, with the underscore here. This is the way how I learned to create parameters in functions. Okay. Does this work? No, it doesn't work. Why is that? That's strange. Okay, doesn't work. Okay, let's log key code to see what the actual key code is. 0. Why is the key code 0? Okay, let me just change that and put it outside of the function in here. Oops. Strange. Okay. I don't know why key code is 0. It's really strange. Let's try key instead. Does this return the right character? Yep, it does. Okay. So I will change key code to key and ask for the key instead of the key code, which is basically doing exactly the same. Key is a char variable. Nice. Okay, great. Here we go. That's what I wanted to do. Nice. All right. Interaction is running, is working. Cool. All right. Matteo, you are writing, it's changing the height level because the floor is crooked. So if you would rotate X to 90, it shouldn't, because it would be really on the floor. Okay, let's try that. Oops, not 0, but 90. Come on. 90. Yes, that's perfect. Amazing. I love that. That's cool. Great. Okay. Whew. All right. Great. So we've got the basic setup here. Yeah, works. Nice. Okay, well, I will create a new step to save the interim state. And by the way, for everyone who's already part of my Patreon community, I will create a Discord channel in a minute to share the code, or I will do this now. So if you want, you can experiment with it, but it's exclusive for my students. Text channels. Okay, let's call this live stream exclusive. Okay, now we have a channel on Discord, and I will just take that code now and share it on the Discord channel. Take these two, compress it, or I think you don't need this first one because that didn't work at all. So now I will just create it, put it into the Discord channel. And here it is. Cool. All right. Okay, now the basic setup is working. Maybe it makes sense to create, well, maybe it makes sense to take a look at the moods that I've just collected to explore some possible directions I could go. So this mood is very interesting, and I've been talking about some of them already a week ago on my Patreon channel. So these are some ideas that I just picked out of my massive mood board that I'm working on since many years. There are dozens and, well, there are hundreds of images that I collected there, categorized, and yeah, I just went through the whole collection and I just collected a few nice moods to take a look at what could be built. So I think we are already very close to something like this, right? We've got something like light bulbs on the floor of the sketch, which is very interesting. But now we don't have something in the foreground, and I think it would be cool to create something that we could maybe go through, maybe something like a piece of architecture. It could be something like this, like a randomized shape that we could walk through. Right? I don't know. That would be cool. Yeah, this is an amazing work by Raven Quark. Very, very skilled and super talented creative coder. He did amazing work, especially I think he was one of the most popular Tumblrs on processing back in the days. Very inspiring. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff here. We also could create something like a sphere in the middle. And also we could create a sphere to create a dome so that we are kind of inside of this huge sphere, which creates the illusion of having a, how to say that? Of having something like a background or a horizon. Let's do this. Okay, let's do that. I will create a new coordinate system, and in there I will translate everything to the center of the sketch window. And I will create a sphere that is huge, very, very big. Let's say it should have, I don't know, 2000, a diameter of 2000 pixels. Yeah, okay, this is massive. 2000, let's set this to 4000, and let's create a texture for the sphere. Or maybe before, it makes sense to show you what I'm exactly doing here. So I will set the stroke again to white. Okay, I have to clean up a little bit because I think it makes sense to make the code a little bit more easy to read also for you. So I will create two variables now for background and foreground colors. BG equals to 0 and FG equals to F1, F1, F1. And I will put these variables here into these functions. Yep, here as well, FG. And here I will reset the whole thing by saying no stroke fill FG. And here I will say, take that piece of code, put it in here, and here we'll say fill, no fill, stroke, and stroke weight. Now I'm creating a sphere that is very large. And yeah, it worked. It looks a little bit weird, but I think it's easier to see. Okay, let me just scale the size of that sphere to 8000. Okay, I get it. This is an optical illusion. I thought that my points seem to be outside of the sphere, but I can see if they are outside or inside because the sphere is, at the moment, it doesn't have a fill. So I will create, instead of saying no fill, I will say fill. We will give it a color. Blue in this case. That means my field is inside of that sphere because otherwise it would be cut. So if I change the size of the sphere to 2000, for example, it is probably cutting a bit of my field. I call this floor field at the moment because I'm so concentrated. Sorry for that. Yeah, but as you can see, it's just cutting a piece of a piece of my floor. Okay, but anyway, let's just work with the texture. Then we can really see how that looks like. Okay, I will go to my folder that is my image pool. I've got a folder called material. In there is a folder called image pool, and there's a very nice galaxy that I often use for backgrounds, and I have loaded it into my sketch. It is called 28.jpg. P-image parenthesis, p-image emg, or I will call this tex equals to load image parentheses, what did I say? 28.jpg. 28.jpg. Okay, does it work? Okay, it's in the sketch. It doesn't yell at me. That's good. Cool. Now I can use that, hopefully, to work with it as a texture. Texture. TEX. Okay, that doesn't work. I fear it doesn't work because working with textures on 3D primitives and processing works a little bit different than expected. We have to create a P-shape object. Okay, sphere texture processing. Okay, here's the article. Okay, P-shape globe. Then I have to create a shape, sphere. Okay, interesting. Yep. Globe equals to create shape sphere 50. This is probably the size of the sphere. And then I have to say globe.set texture text. And here, oh, that was the question, but not the answer. But I remember that this worked the same way. Okay, globe set texture, nice. And then I have to use the shape function instead of the sphere function. Let's do that and see if it worked. Yes, very nice, cool. No stroke. Okay, for any reason, there is still a stroke, and of course I have to scale that sphere, let's say to 2000. Probably that's a little bit too large, but we will see. Okay. Okay, cool. Make it a little bit smaller. Doesn't make any difference. Okay, but why is there a texture and a stroke? Processing, create shape, no stroke. That's the cool thing about processing, right? You can basically type everything into anything into Google, and it would spit out the right point in the reference. Stroke. Okay. I don't exactly get why it is working like that. It's really strange. Okay, now I have I have a white stroke. That's fine, but P shape. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Like, of course, I always can take a look into the class itself. Curves, P shape, create shape, load shape, rectangle, stroke, cap, stroke, join, beacon, contour, box color setting. Oh, nice. Okay, I can say something like no stroke. Hope that works. Okay, that did not work. It says no stroke can only be called between begin shape and end shape. Okay. Said Phil, add child. I tried to find out how to deactivate the stroke here. I guess I have a sketch in my folder. I wanted to avoid to look into old sketches, but in this case, I think it makes sense to do that. And see, I think there's something called globe that I created once, where I just used exactly the same technique to deactivate the stroke. Okay, this looks like the solution. Let's see. Create shape, PG2, no stroke. So this is confusing. I need a simpler example, I think. Okay, it's a rasterizing algorithm running on it. Okay, this is the same example. Texture mode normal. For any reason, I think this should work then, because maybe I have to set the texture mode. Is that the problem here? I don't know. No. Okay. Anyway, let's skip this for now. Maybe I find a fix for that tomorrow or later. Oh, Sergio. Thanks. I would try that. Sergio writes, use set stroke. Okay, I will try that. Let's see, set stroke false. Here we go. Amazing. Thank you so much, Sergio. That's cool. Awesome. That worked. Nice. All right. That's cool. Thank you. Now I have a very nice dome, right? And as you can see, cool. The ceiling here, or the floor here is disappearing there. Wow. That fixed, you know, it's really strange sometimes how the processing API works. So I think, especially with this P-shape object, and to be honest, I never use P-shape. It's very certain that I work with P-shape. I find it super inconvenient, but in this case we have to when we want to work with 3D geometry that's a little bit more advanced, or even an external 3D model. So, all right, here this makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Sergio. Okay, now I can adjust the size of that globe and set it to, let's say, 5,000 to make more of that field visible. Yes, very nice. Now we have a very, very wide look, a very wide view into the void here. But I also see that this background image is probably not exactly the right one, because it's very it has so many contrasts in lights and the dark parts here of the image. So I have to think about how to deal with that. But we just made it up and running, or just brought it to life, so that's fine. Okay, what I also want to do now here is I want to create a plate that is under the terrain. So, and that plate should have a specific color so that we really see the horizon here. And I can do that by saying something like rect mode center, and create a rect that also has the same rotation and has position of 0, 0, and then it should have a magnitude of magnitude. Yep, very cool. And I will also put it into a matrix, push and pop, and then I will translate it by a few pixels, let's say 20 pixels to the bottom. Okay, I think this was the wrong spot. 20 pixels to the bottom, that's the place where I should put that. And I also have to change the color of that rectangle to see the yes, very nice, cool. Now look at this. And now the whole background makes much more sense, right? Now we have this horizon here, and now, yeah, this looks much more realistic. Great. I will set the fill color to BG. And I think it could be also interesting to make the sphere rotating a bit on the y-axis. Radians, or rotate y, radians, frame count. Okay. Okay, that's too much, as you can see. I wanted to have it a little bit, you know, just like a very, very slow motion. 0.01, maybe that's a good value. Let's see, yeah, that's cool. Let's look for some clouds on Unsplash. Maybe that works better. So unsplash.com, clouds. Whoa, it's dramatic, isn't it? That's cool. Let's try a few different backgrounds. This could also be very interesting because it's very clean. Let's see. Go to my downloads, take these 3 images and drag it into the sketch. Here we go. And now I will just rename these images here because, you know, these file names are very, very long. I will call this 1, 2, and 3. And then I can just reference them by saying 1, 2, 3. Let's see if that works. Okay, now we have this very clean one. Yep, interesting. 2. This looks very, very much already since one of the projects by one of my students, or 2 of my students, Yannick Sova and Jona Gottschalk, they created a gallery. I helped them a lot with setting up this whole 3D scene, but they just created a gallery in one of my courses at HAWK, and yeah, this looks like very much like the foundation they have used in their project. Yes, but this is very nice. I mean, this is a very simple 3D scene, and as you can see, it's rotating a little bit. It feels like clouds are flying in the sky. And I will also try to make this whole thing black and white, like, you know, text.filter gray. Or is it gray with E? Oh, sorry, text, not text, but text. Yes, well, that's great. Cool. We could also use a texture for the floor. No, I think we could do that, but you know, the problem is the following. Look, when we walk and walk and walk and walk on, there's one point where we will reach the end of the scene. Can you see that? Wow, okay. This is amazing, right? Already feels a little bit like a game. We can fly, and if we would be able to turn around the camera, which is not possible at the moment, we would be able to see that we are just walking on a huge kind of plate, right? Like a plate, like a, you know, a plate. I don't know if plate is the right term for that, but anyway, I don't care. Yeah. So let's leave that plate here. It's quite large. Yep. Okay, now we are leaving the space or the plate and we are flying in space. Wow, this is crazy. That's processing, right? Imagine that. I mean, processing is such a cool software. It enables us to build experiences like this one here. It's very fascinating, I think. Cool, let's take a look into the chat. Yup, that works. Great, I will save that. Whoops, oh no, oops, I just saved it to the wrong. Okay, I will save this as Digital Reality Step 3 now, and I will share it to my Patreon community with Discord. Here we go. Compress. And I mean, hey, if you want to do any remixes, if you want to work with that code and, you know, share it with others, it's really fun to see what people build out of this. So feel free to create your own remixes out of my code. I would love to see some interesting results. Cool, here we go. I will put it to the Discord channel now. Yes, all right, uploading. It's uploading slow because there are quite a few images in there. All right, cool. What's next? So now we have a background, we have a floor, we have we have a pretty amazing scene. So it would be cool to place some objects in the scene, I think. And we also could try some lighting. Well, maybe that's the first thing I want to try here. So let's try some lighting. So there's a function in processing, and I will save this now to digital reality step 4 to make sure I don't overwrite anything. So there's a function in processing called Directional Light. And it takes 6 parameters. The first 3 parameters are the color of the light that I want to use. So I will set it to 255, 255, 255. This is white, white, white on RGB. And then I have to set the direction, which is a value between -1 and 1 on each axis. So on the x-axis, I would like to have it on -1. On the y-axis, I would like to have it on, I don't know. I would try what looks best. And on the z-axis, I will put it to 0 as well. And let's see how that looks like. Oops. Well, this is crazy. Now we have light from the left. And I will pull the light source. So the light source is now, I think it's mirrored in my OBS. Yeah. So the light source is coming from that direction here. Come on. From the left, right? And I have to now pull the whole light source a little bit more into the direction of the camera to make it light more from the front. And I can do that by saying 1 on the z-axis, for example. I guess that's right. Nope, that was wrong. Is it -1? I don't know exactly. Yeah, that was -1. So now it's not in the scene. It came a little bit closer to the camera. Well, the problem is that, clouds don't necessarily have shadows. I mean, we already see the shadows. Maybe later on I can deactivate these shadows for the clouds. But hey, for now, I think that's fine. Let's put a box into the middle. Or maybe, let's start with a box. Let's put a box into the middle. And I think it also makes sense to clean up the code a little bit here, the sketch, because at the moment it's very messy. And when we don't... Oops, damn, I deleted the speed variable, float speed equals 10. So if we want to scale a sketch, it really makes sense to clean it up a little bit, because otherwise it gets very crappy and very, messy. It's hard to work with it. So yeah, it makes sense to clean it up. Let's do that. Okay, first of all, I would like to create a function that is called scene. I will create a new tab called scene. I will create a function that is called scene, parentheses, and in there, I will put everything that is creating the scene, okay? So perspective is not really what I mean. I mean all the things that really create exactly what we see here in the sketch, in the scene. So the objects, the floor, the background, so, this dome. That's how people call this. That's a dome, right? We are inside of a dome looking into the inside of the dome. Let's take that code, put it in the scene function, and run the scene function from here. That should work. Okay, it doesn't work because we don't have access to the variables tiles X and tiles Y. I think we can take those variables and put them into the outside, because these are constants that will probably never change, which is okay. Tile W cannot be resolved in a variable. That's also fine. So here is... I can make, that's a problem of variable scope. So these variables are not accessible from everywhere in the sketch. So we have to make sure that we set the scope to the right position. So that means a variable is always valid in the fences where you define it. So this is a fence, right? You can imagine these curly brackets as fences. And because these variables are declared here inside of the draw function, they are not accessible from any other function like that one here, for example. So that's why I have to make them accessible by creating them at the outside, like float tile W, comma, float tile H. Now it should work. Okay, float, no, that didn't. Sorry, float tile W, float tile H. Now it should work. Here we go. That was good. Great. Okay. So this is not a constant because we changed the value, but tiles x is a constant. So I'm going to refactor my code a little bit, make it a little bit more clean and easier to read. So I will replace tiles x in every position with tiles x in uppercase. And I will do the same with tiles y. Tiles y, tiles y. Replace all. So you can see now I have converted the variable name or the data type tiles x, which has been written in camel case, to uppercase. This doesn't affect any functionality, but it's just there to to make the code more clean and to differentiate between constants and variables. So this is now a constant, right? It's just a syntactical thing. It's just about how you write the code. Great. Okay. Tile W and tile H is not a constant. Speed could be a constant, but it could also change later on. I don't know. So anyway, let's keep it like this. Okay, we've just extracted the code from the scene to a function, which is great. Now, what could we extract as? Okay, this could also be extracted, like, you know, interaction. Interaction could be a function. Interaction. Nice. New tab, interaction. I will create a function called void interaction, parentheses, curly brackets, and in here I will put that code. Hope this will work. Please, please, please. Yes, it works. That's great. So now maybe we should call this not interaction, but interaction keyboard, because that's the function that I use to interact with the keyboard, or to use the keyboard to interact with the sketch. Nice. Okay, this could also be put into the setup function, because at the moment we don't change the value of the amount of the tiles anyway. It still works, which is great. Cool. Now, all right. Let's go back to the scene and see if we can put some objects into the middle of that scene here. Okay, so this is the place where we could put something like a box, for example. Translate, parentheses, width divided by 2, height divided by 2. I will wrap it into a new matrix with push and pop. Of course, this function should be called push instead of pop. Okay. Push and pop, translate. I will create a box now. Box, parentheses, and this box should have a size of, let's say, 100 pixels. And I would like to move it on the Y. Well, now we should see this box, but it's just, oh wow, it is complete. Is that possible? Oh, and we can never reach this box because we have set it into we have to wrap it into the other coordinate system. I think here is the place we have to put it to make sure it also moves with the whole system. Okay, there's something wrong. What's going on here? I guess we are already translating the box to the middle because we are translating the parent coordinate system. So now it should be there. Here it is. Yes, that's the box. The problem is at the moment it is cut off because we are putting it on the y-axis into the exact middle, but that's where the plane is and just cuts off the bottom of that box. That means we have to drag it out of that. Yeah, you know, drag it out of the sand, kind of. 300, and make sure we can see that it's a box by saying rotate y, parentheses, radians, frame count. And I will take a look at the chat now to see if there's something new in there. Okay, but first let's check if that box is rotating. Yes, it's rotating. but for any reason it's not okay. It's not really, I didn't really pull it out of the sand. Why is that? I don't exactly understand what's going on here. Okay, let's deactivate the rotation quickly. I want to just I want to drag the box out of the sand. It should be possible with mouse X, with the second parameter here in the translate function. But for any reason, it doesn't work. Let's see what happens when I'm... There's some... Oh, okay. Whoa. Ah, of course. Oh, I just tilted the whole system, so that means it's now moving on the y-axis, but on, okay, on how to say, on the rotated coordinate system. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to, I just take a look at the chat to see if there's someone who is responding to what I'm doing here. Okay. Oh wow, new comments. I love comments. That's great. Okay, what do we have? Yes, hey, oh, good morning. What does PCD stand for? PCD is Processing Community Day, if you mean that. PCD is, the Processing Community Day is an event that is hosted by various communities worldwide to celebrate projects and artists working with processing and processing ecosystem like P5JS, processing for Python, processing for Raspberry, processing for Java. So this is kind of the community celebration format that is very interesting because it's open. That means everybody can do a processing community day who is a university or an institution. And that's how the Processing Foundation made sure that people all around the world can connect around the idea of processing, which is very cool. Hi Tim, would you be interested in doing a live session for using sound in processing? That's a very good question. Well, there's a huge problem with sound in processing because using sound with a sketch that doesn't have the appropriate frame rate, that is not able to maintain the frame rate of 30 frames, for example, this will lead to some ugly offsets in the visual layer and the sound layer. So that's the reason why if you want to use sound in processing, you always have to make sure that your scenes are very, very simple, not too complex. And to be honest, that always kept me away from doing it because I see processing, first of all, here in my teaching as a rendering engine for videos. And when I want to use music or sound in my videos, I just add it as a layer later on to the video. So real-time sound is a little bit tricky in processing. It's definitely possible. So I've got some friends doing amazing work with that, but at the moment I don't aim to try that out because that just leads very far out into some very technical problems that I don't like to explore. It's very frustrating. But hey, who knows? Maybe I will take a look at it later on in the next month. I don't know if I feel like I want to do that. Cool. Yes. Okay, why is now the Z? Thank you so much. Again, a very smart comment by Matteo. Thank you, Matteo. Let's try if that's true. Oops. So this should do the trick then, if Matteo is right. Looks good, but I'm translating it, whoops, on the wrong axis. Here we go. Amazing. Nice. Haha. Thank you, Matteo. That was the right fix for the problem. Now I can also reactivate this rotation function and maybe change the box size a little bit to make sure you see that we really have a very nice, whoops, not Y, but rotate X then. Is that the right angle? To make sure you see that we really have a lighting here, right? As you can see, the color of the sides of my box are changing depending on the rotation angle, and that's a feature of lighting and processing. Well, lighting and processing is very, very simple. So it's not really comparable with Blender or some advanced WebGL frameworks like 3JS, because the processing renderer is not able to render shadows. So if there would be another box behind that one, it wouldn't drop any shadows on it. I think this leads to a very interesting, very old school aesthetic. So I really like that. I think it's really interesting. But and of course, processing is a good environment to learn the very fundamental principles, and later on you can switch on any advanced technology, but the principles of camera and lighting are always the same in all 3D technologies, or in most of them, and this is a very good way to learn it. I like these very old school aesthetics of processing. I really utilize them in all of my works, and I think these kind of constraints lead to very interesting effects. But hey, it's not Unreal Engine, it's processing. Processing is super lo-fi and low-tech. But it forces you to understand the principles instead of just applying some fancy techniques that fix all the problems themselves. It forces you to think, and that's what I really like about it. Cool, we've got a box rotating in our 3D scene. That's amazing. All right, talking, coding, reacting to the chat, it's very exhausting. I think I need 1 minute to get some water. I'm back in just a little moment. And by the way, this is a cool bottle because I don't know if you can see that. It's my TEDx bottle because I gave a TEDx talk this year, and they just gave me this bottle where my name is printed onto. That's nice, isn't it? Unfortunately, the video is not finished yet, so I was not able to watch my talk myself. But it's fine. But there is a rehearsal of that talk on my website. So if you go to my blog, so my website is timrodenbrücker.de. Oh, that's not the blog, that's the about page. Here we go. TEDx, here it is. So this is my second TEDx talk. 2017 I gave my first one, but this is the second one. I think it's a very interesting one because I'm speaking a bit about my past and how I came in touch with creative coding and why I think that this is a very powerful tool for education in the 21st century. And I just drop a spotlight onto my past and the past of the company of my father, who is a graphic designer and experienced so many fundamental transitions and fundamental changes in his career as a self-employed graphic designer with an own agency and people working there. So this is a little story of my, how I just came to, or this is one perspective on why creative coding is an interesting thing to do. And yeah, maybe you want to check it out. I can put it into the chat now. I think that's the easiest way to share with you. Here we go. There it is. Yeah. Cool. Anything else I want to point out on my website? Let me take a look. I'm doing these community spotlights now. I'm just inviting people to answer some questions, or just a community spotlight is just taking some people from the community that I've learned to know in the last years and puts them into a spotlight. Right? This could be an interview. This could be a little story. Anything that anything that reflects on their perspective on creative coding. So these are always people from the creative coding scene. It's very exciting. And on, this is also very cool. On January 21st, I will meet the amazing Yevan Song, who is one of my most favorite creative coders. Let me just show you that website because she's brilliant, right? I love her work so much. She's creating work with web technologies, but this is secondary. I don't really like to think about the work of a creative coder that it's done with a specific technology, because the technology is secondary. It's not important what kind of technology you use. So, but she uses web technologies, mostly CSS, plain CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. So she uses very, very rudimentary tools and creates amazing experiences with these tools. I find her so inspiring. The idea behind is that she was looking for websites that are as far as possible away from this template aesthetic that we see mostly in all of the websites. And to be honest, I'm guilty myself because my website is also very based on a template aesthetic. I coded it myself, but for me, usability is the most important topic and the most important thing, because I want to make my large database of content as accessible and as easy accessible as possible. But she thinks completely different about websites, and she looks at them like artworks. I find this extremely exciting and extremely inspiring. And look at this, by the way. This website is not fueled by a content management system, but by a Google Sheet, which is amazing. So all the projects here with their links and videos are hosted on Google Sheets, which is crazy, right? She takes an Excel sheets hosted on Google for her content management, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so looking at technologies from a more experimental point of view, trying to find new ways of expression, trying to find new ways of, wow, cool. I can use my Stream Deck here to change the perspective. I never do that. I bought the Stream Deck. I can change between these two views. But this is one of the main points of my work. I think I'm not teaching processing and creative coding because I think I really have something that really drives me. I think that creative coding is a very powerful tool to empower ourselves for this fully digitized future. And I think for me, it's not really about learning a specific programming language, but to learn the basic principles of software and to confront ourselves with our own position in terms of the software that we use every day. So to question them, to think about how we could do it better, how it could be maybe more open and liberal. And because at the moment we are just using technologies by by companies who sell our data and stuff. So basically this is a very, very complex topic, but I think it's very interesting to meet artists that share a fresh perspective on the use of technologies, and Yevan Song is definitely one of these people, and I am very, very excited to meet her on January 27th. All right, great. Let's get back to the application, and I think I will move on for half an hour, and then I will continue with this series tomorrow at the same time from 10 a.m. So what do we have here? We have a scene with a box in the middle. Here we go. We have a scene with a box in the middle. Sorry, I just realized that I just didn't share my screen. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't mess it up. Anyway, so this is the scene we have now. I think it's already very interesting. I am now interested in, or I think it could be interesting, first of all, to fix that box to a specific position, maybe -400. Let's see. Okay, now it's behind the camera. So in the Z space, that's something I always forget. If you want to put something in front of the camera, you have to add a value to the Z position. Okay. And of course, I also forgot that I flipped the coordinate system. So that means I have to come on. Okay, I'm a bit confused now. Let me see. Okay, this is too much. I'm trying to put it into an appropriate position. Yeah, okay, this is also a little bit too much. I will put it to 200. I think that's fine. Yes, okay. The golden ratio. Maybe a little bit more to the top, because I've got the feeling that the ceiling is cutting off, or the floor is cutting off a little bit of this box now. Okay, this is great. Now it works. Cool, nice. By the way, we could now move into that box, and this is how it looks in the inside. So it still gets light, which is strange because, you know, we are inside of the box and the light source is outside, but that's because we are using a very simple 3D renderer in processing. It's fine. It's totally fine. But look, we can move away from the box and move forward, closer to it. It's already very, very interesting here. Okay. What could we do with this scene? Maybe you can write something into the chat if you have some ideas. I would like to hear what you would like to, what you would do with that scene here. Definitely check out it. Okay. Okay. Oh, Sergio, you are looking for the code. And by the way, I'm just saving that sketch now as a new name, and we'll share it again to the Discord server. Let me see. Let me see, where is it? Code, here we are. So I will share step 4 and 5 now with you. Compress 4 and 5, compress. I would take these two zip files now and drag it into the Discord channel. So Sergio, are you, as far as I, okay, I think I have to answer some questions in the Discord. This. Okay, some Frankie, thank you, Frankie. Awesome. Sergio, I created a channel called Exclusive. There you have the code. Okay. Trees and birds. Okay, sounds great. Sergio, okay, Sergio, did you find the code? It's in the exclusive channel on Discord, and I guess you are a student. So, oh. Oh, Sergio, you are in the voice channel. I think you don't have to do, you don't have to, because I'm not doing anything here. But you have to get the student role, but I will give it to you now. So now you should have access to the exclusive channel on on Discord. Cool. Nice. What do you mean, Speedwolf, by is step 1 missing? I like the idea of, let me just close that stuff here, of Matteo to add some birds and some objects flying around the scene. That could be done. It's a little bit advanced, so I have to use some magical formulas and some classes and objects for that, but well, why not? Yeah. Speedwolf, what do you mean? In the Discord, only zips 2, 5 are only zips 1. Yeah. You know, step 1 was very crappy and very unfinished, so I just decided to only share 3, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Should be a problem. Okay. Great. Let's create some objects flying around here. How to do that? So what I could do is I could create a class now. I think, let me just give you a little insight into my strategy about object-oriented programming. So in my curriculum, in my teaching, I always avoid object-oriented programming because I try to stay under the radar of this kind of level of complexity. Because my goal is to onboard people that usually don't have access to, let's say, computer programming and that look a very low level, low threshold entry into this world. That's one of the reasons why I just try to keep my teaching as simple and as low level as possible. But of course, when you want to cross a specific border and want to create something more complex and more more interesting, or maybe not interesting is not the right term, because you can definitely create very interesting stuff without object-oriented programming. But if you want to assign some intelligence and some more complex characteristics to specific objects or specific elements, then you need object-oriented programming. So object-oriented programming, I've got a quite nice let me just try to explain what I'm talking about here. So functional programming is has been around right from the beginning when programming languages have been invented, as far as I know. So functional programming just takes multiple lines of code and compresses them to one line of code. Okay. This is very hard to explain, to be honest. Super abstract. I will give my best to do that. Okay, so let's think of this scenario. So we have a few commands we want to do, like rect, draw a rectangle, position 0, 0, 10, 10, give this rectangle a color of yellow, and say that it shouldn't have a stroke. So these are 3 lines of code. But what we could do, we could just compress them to 1 line of code by saying, taking that piece of code here, saying void draw rect, for example. This is a name I just came up with now, and I will put that code in here, and then I can execute this function by saying draw rect. So this is a reference to this function here, draw rect, right? So this references this function, and it will work. It will execute that code, and as you can see, here's a little rectangle in the top left. This enables you to write modular code to make it more modular. You can reuse these components, so you can reuse functions multiple times across your sketch. And object-oriented programming makes that takes the level of modularity and complexity, not complexity, but modularity and reusability to another level. That means it gets a little bit more comprehensive. This is really the very first time that I explain something like that, but I think it's a good practice for me as well. So I will just create a random walker tutorial now, like that one you find in Daniel Schiffman's Nature of Code, because that's the best explanation for object-oriented programming that I know. All right, so we have a sketch. This sketch has a size of 200, let's say 900 pixels. And I will create a draw function here and create a background function. And okay, so I would like to have a little square that moves every frame, makes a random decision in which direction it goes, right? So that just picks a pixel around it, or picks a direction surrounding it and go to move in that direction. So I forgot that I will, let me think. Okay, I will create a new tab now. I will call it Walker. I will create a class called Walker, which is this element that I'm creating here. And later on, the cool thing about that is that I can create an infinite amount of these elements. I will show you what I mean in a minute. So class Walker. there's a constructor in every class. This is the function that is executed to create this walker, and this walker has properties like an X position and an Y position. Okay, X should be equal to 0, and Y should also be set to 0. And now it has a function that is called move. We even could call it walk because it's a walker, right? And everything it just does the following. It just adds a random value between -1 and 1 to the X and the Y axis. So X equals to, or plus equals to random -1 and 1. And I will also take that code to do the same with the y-axis. So this is the walk function. This is basically calculating where this walker moves. And I will create another function called display. And this is how the walker looks like. So this walker should be an ellipse or a rectangle. Rect. It should have a size of 5, let's say. 0, 0, no. X, comma, Y, comma, 5, comma, 5. And now I can create a walker out of the class walker. So think of a class as a definition how a human looks like. A human has 2 arms, a human has 2 legs, 2 eyes, a head, and so on. And a specific human, like me, has specific properties, like brown eyes, brown hair, I wear glasses, I like coding, I can code, I speak German, I speak English, I understand a little bit of Portuguese. So all these properties are things that we can assign to, in theory, right? In theory to a specific object. But the class is explaining how a human, or what kind of properties every human has. A human has a heart, a human has a brain, and so on, right? And a class is kind of a way to describe something very abstract. And in this case, we are describing an object called walker, which has, a position. That's everything, right? It's a very, very abstract, a very, very simple class with 2 values in it, X and Y. And it can walk and it can display itself. So now I can create an object out of that by saying walker W, and I can initialize this object in my setup function. W equals to new walker. And this is the function that we need to use to create a object. So, and now I can, I can say w.walk and w.display. And if I do so, there should be a, okay, I have to translate everything to the middle of the sketch window. Translate width divided by 2, height divided by 2, because then we can see it properly. So now we should see a little square walking on the sketch window here to a random position, everything of single frame. So the cool thing about that is that we could, create an infinite amount of walkers. And before I explain, or before I demonstrate this, I will show you what happens when we just put the background function into the setup function. And yeah, because now the walker is kind of a, oh wow, what's going on here? Why is the background not clearing? Why is the background clearing even if I didn't? What? That's 100% strange, because why is that happening? Strange. Because I thought, oh, okay, because it has a stroke. Yeah, no stroke. Okay, this is a strange bug, but don't care too much about this. So now it will leave a trail when it moves. And over time, it creates a very organic looking structure. So we could accelerate the whole thing by first of all, maybe sizing that thing down to 1 pixel and taking a for loop to accelerate this whole walking process. For int I equals to 0, I is smaller than 100, I plus plus, parentheses, and then we have 100 steps every single frame. And now, you know, it's like a growing algorithm, and it's also probably one of the reasons why it is one of the first exercises from this amazing book, The Nature of Code, by the one and only Daniel Schiffman, in which he explains how we can rebuild phenomena from nature with processing, or even with P5.js. There are many videos online on YouTube. Check them out. They are amazing. So it's a huge source of inspiration. Yeah, and we are now, we are now drawing a very natural pattern to the sketch window by creating a little intelligent element that makes a decision every single time when this walk function is executed. The cool thing about that is, and I'm getting really advanced for those of you who have never worked with object-oriented programming, I will now create an array list for a walker. And I loved to play, I will call it walkers. I loved to play around with that some years ago before I started to think much more simple and to prepare my curriculum and my courses. But an array list is basically a very complex kind of array that has some functions that we can use to add elements to the, to it. And let me just see if there's something new in the chat here. Yeah, okay, no critical questions. Nothing that definitely has to be answered exactly now. Okay, so now I will create a array list called walkers. Walkers equals to new array list walker. This is a function, so this is also a class, right? This is also a constructor. I'm creating an kind of an object, which is an array list. Super spacey stuff. I know it's very advanced, but hey, wait, this is pretty cool. So for int I equals to 0, I is smaller than walkers dot size I plus plus. So I'm looping through the array list of walkers, and I will. Oh no. So sorry. In this is what I need later on in the draw loop. Let me just put that in here. Okay, but here I want to do something else. I want to add 100 walkers to this array list. I want to have 100 walkers instead of just one. So walkers dot add parentheses new walker parentheses. So I will add a new walker 100 times with this for loop to my walkers array. And here it becomes clear that, you know, for loops in my courses, I explained that I use them mostly to distribute elements, but that's valid for the very beginning of the learning process. If you want to go through a specific array and when you want to do something with every single element in it, you also, that's basically why for loops exist, right? So to loop through things. And I'm here in this place, I will loop through my walkers array list. I will just take all these, all this code here. I will also delete that line of code that creates this new walker object. And I will write a line of code to get the walker out of that array list by saying walker w equals to walkers.get I. So this gets a specific walker from that element, and it does it with every single, so this line of code is executed with every single walker in that array list. And now look what happens. Now we have 100 walkers walking on our sketch window and drawing and painting a beautiful natural organic pattern to our sketch window. This is fascinating, right? So we also could accelerate this again with another for loop. So we wrap the whole thing into another for loop. And this, of course, has to get another variable name because otherwise it won't work. And I will say that this should be executed 100 times a frame. I hope my computer is not going to It's going to be able to run the code. Yes, whoa, look at this, amazing, right? So we are programming a very simple intelligence here. Maybe we should resize that little element to 0.2. That's pretty cool because then, whoa, that looks amazing, doesn't it? So what I really like about programming and creative coding in general is that you sometimes, there's something like, let's speak in metaphors here. So there's something like a hill that you have to climb up, and until you reach that point where you stand at the top of that hill, you don't see what's behind. And the learning process of coding and programming in general is full of these experiences. Like, I try to keep my courses very low level to make to supply this experience that coding doesn't necessarily be very hard and abstract. But at the same time, I want to invite people to learn a specific approach and a specific mindset that addresses the complex problems that we face when we work with code. Like debugging, what happens when I have an error? How can I fix that error? These are the most important questions to answer in the beginning. How can I set up a sketching process? So if you master these skills, it's much easier to go from one hill to the other, to the next one, right? This is kind of the very basic equipment that I find valuable and important when you start a career, let's say, as a creative coder, or a way of a creative coding hobbyist, professional, whatever. So that's why I keep my curriculum very low level. But that was a little, journey into the world of object-oriented programming. And what I would like to do now is creating a complex object with many different elements that have a specific logic, how they move, just like a swarm of birds. So a real swarm of birds would be very difficult, because then you have to check if a bird is close to the other one. And that's something I've never solved before. So that's something you can learn also in the nature of code. And Dan Schiffman uses the p-vector class very often to, he utilizes this very, advanced class in processing, which has many very useful functions to do vector math. But I'm not really skilled in doing that. Maybe we can look up some code from Danny Schiffman's Nature of Code to make it work, but I think maybe that would lead too far out. My main goal is to create a very nice aesthetic and a very nice experience that looks great and that is fun and looks appealing. Maybe has some questions that it makes arise. I don't know. Okay, I'm completely done. This is very exhausting, to be honest, to stream, but I really enjoyed it. It was amazing. So today I will, finish that session for now. I will also share the random walker code in my Discord channel, and I am very much looking forward for tomorrow. I will start at around 10 a.m. with my stream. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let me go back. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Leave comments if you want. So I'm very much looking forward to hear ideas, what to do with this scene, what you would like to me to explain, and have a great day, enjoy, and see you then. Peace out, and I'm ending the stream.